afternoon, and welcome to our June 28th, 2023 Community Policing Podcast. I'm honored today, I'm privileged today to have Skylar, one of our Bloomfield Hills student athletes, with us, and Officer Brian Miller from the Auburn Hills Police Department, who is their Community Relations Officer. He's Bloomfield Township's equivalent of Officer Soley, who was on last week. They're both guests this week to talk about our Youth Regional Police Academy that's going on, which is a partnership between Auburn Hills, Birmingham, Bloomfield Township, and the city of Rochester. And we've touched on past podcasts about the partnerships we have with specifically those three agencies, which really all started with our core program. Officer Miller is also a part of our South Oakland County Crash Investigations team, and also previous surveillance officer with the Troy Surveillance, which I've mentioned many times in our past podcasts. So Brian and I have known each other a long time. I had the privilege of meeting Skylar this week while she's at the Youth Police Academy here. So how are you guys?
Great.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. All right, Skylar. So it's day 3 of the police academy. You know, for you, what's it been like so far?
It's been very interesting learning about all the techniques that you need to know to become a police officer.
And I think you and I talked before, but you have an interest in a career, some field of law enforcement, correct?
Yeah, I want to become a detective.
Okay. And we talked about you got to be an officer on the streets before you be a good detective, right?
Yeah.
What drew you to this career? Is it something you've always had? Do you have law enforcement in the family?
I don't have any law enforcement in the family, but I wanted to be a lawyer before, but now I think that maybe it would be easier, and you can make better good by being a detective too.
Detectives really are advocates for their victims of crimes, because typically the detectives are always following up. I think you had an opportunity yesterday to meet Yvette Brown, a detective who's going to be retiring from Auburn Hills here in the near future. But she's obviously been a really successful detective with Auburn Hills, and she's involved in so many big cases. So you guys got to see a little bit of a case debrief yesterday, a case study that they did out in Auburn Hills, and they actually affected multiple communities, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So that still interests you?
Yeah.
Are you shocked at some of the things that you've seen? I mean, you talk about some of the things that you've done so far in the class. We've had, I know I was in there yesterday morning and you guys were going through the defensive tactics and the physical training part of it. How'd that work out?
I thought that the tactics were easy. The only part that I'm having kind of trouble with was functioning the guns, but that's it. Yeah,
which comes with experience, it comes with training, it comes with being comfortable in those situations.
And for the record, the guns that she's talking about are simunition weapons, so they're not actual firearms, but they function the same.
So, Brian, you started this youth academy, I think it was a few years ago in Auburn Hills. Talk a little bit about the history of it and why we find it so important as law enforcement, especially in today's market of law enforcement.
Sure thing, Chief. So about 10 years ago, we started up a Citizens Police Academy where we were bringing adults into our police department, and we still continue this program. We do a 10-week or so program with them, certain nights a week, and teach them as much as we can about law enforcement, almost for the same reason as for the youth. It was just to open people's eyes to what we do, because there's a lot of a misunderstanding on what we do and why we do things. And that was a huge success. And from that point, we thought, we should start involving the youth and start getting people like I was in high school interested in law enforcement, give them some outlets, get them some experience, a way to see really what it's all about versus just what we think it's about. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we started that up. And this year, we work so closely together, as you discussed. We're in so many different units together, and I've been working with Nick on quite a few different things, Nick Soley. I thought it'd be great to just have it bigger. It's hard to run an academy by yourself. You don't get the pool of students from one city that you might get from 4 different cities. So we expanded it to these 4 cities. And I'll be honest, so far, this is the most successful one we've had.
Yeah. And again, I've come down each day when I've had the opportunity to watch. And it's also the buy-in from our agencies and the officers that have really volunteered their time. I mean, we've had yesterday, I know Bloomfield Township had a few officers there for the PT. Detective Brown yesterday from Auburn Hills and Terrence today from Auburn Hills. And it's been a really good collaboration amongst all the agencies, and the importance of trying to generate the importance to our for recruiting in the future. If you've seen it, you and I came on about the same time in our agencies. The recruiting's different now. I mean, when you hired on Auburn Hills, was that your first agency?
Yep.
How many people were going for a job?
Gosh, I mean, I remember testing for 2 spots and there'd be 100 applicants. And now we're lucky if there's, 2 applicants for 100 spots. So it's definitely a different world now, and getting them interested is really huge. And I think that, what you touched on about having all these different agency members from all our different agencies come is it lends to the expertise of each topic. For example, Detective Brown spoke yesterday. I know you're interested in being a detective. So that we actually pulled an audible and asked her to come in to talk about one of those complex cases to give you exposure to that and give some of the other students exposure. And we're able to pull from all these different resources that we have because of that, and hopefully get you more interested in it.
Right. And Skylar, you may be able to speak on this. When you watch the media, do you have the mainstream? And I don't want to talk about our local media because we really do have truly good partnerships with our local media. But if you were just an outsider with no interest in this field, could some of the stories you see in the media detract you from doing this job? No,
because like some of them, they're not they don't show the entire story.
And that's the point. That's one of the important things about doing a Citizens Police Academy for adults and for the youth police academies, so that we can show that, yeah, there are some really bad cases and officers out there that have done just criminal acts on duty. But the majority of officers, the majority of us want to engage our communities. And that's why we do this podcast, and is to bring our community, to give them a little more understanding of what we do on a daily basis, that the people that are wearing the uniforms are human beings. Yeah, we have to enforce laws. We took an oath to uphold laws and ordinances of our towns and to make things right. But to get the interest and to show that there's more to police work than just going out and putting handcuffs on somebody. And I think that's truly what's been eye-opening for some of, I think, you guys in the class this week, and then the Citizens Police Academy, especially for adults when we do them, giving them what really truly happens in an investigation. I mean, you guys saw yesterday how much work really goes in. I think it was an armed robbery investigation, a really successful investigation, but the amount of work that goes into it, which, would you have any clue that prior to going through this? The things that you could do to find somebody or to solve a case.
Yeah, I wouldn't know about you can look through somebody's entire iPhone and what they've deleted.
Yeah. We leave a fingerprint everywhere we go. And fortunately for us who want to do this job, people committing criminal acts leave a fingerprint eventually, and we may not get them today, but hopefully get them tomorrow. Well, that's good news. What are you guys doing today?
We're working on the simulator guns, and we just were talking about, I think it was tactics.
And how important safety is.
Yeah.
And one thing I think we talked about, and you heard me talk about a little bit today, is we train for a reason. We train so that things become habit, so that when we handle firearms as police officers in our daily job, that we're handling them properly, safely, that when we train the same way we expect to handle them on the road in the event we get into something, because that's what we're going to fall back on as our training. And it's so important for you guys, for the students in the academy, which there's 22, is it?
22 students, yep.
That's so important to be involved in that. What did you think of the traffic stops yesterday? I know you guys did some traffic stops.
I liked the traffic stops. It was good to learn about what you have to do in order to do it correctly.
Can you see why a traffic stop might be uncomfortable for a police officer walking up to somebody's car who's...
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know what chapter or what part of the day that you're meeting a violator or somebody that you stopped on the side of the road for speed. Maybe they just had a bad day, and did you guys do any of the drunk driving goggles and have the opportunity to drive the I don't know what is that car? Explain that.
That was a drunk driving pedal cart by Fatal Vision. So we had it donated by Autoleave many years ago to our police department, along with the goggles, and perfect for it. We actually got this group talking to each other. Kids are nervous. So, students are nervous when they're first meeting each other, but they seem to have a pretty good time. They've started realizing the effects of alcohol, at least as it relates to balance and vision, by pedaling the cart through a obstacle course.
How'd you think? How was that?
I used probably the worst goggles, so I didn't do well during it, but it was very tricky.
Were you shocked at what, I mean, those are true alcohol glasses, which somebody, I don't know which ones she used, but somebody that might be at a point.
Yeah, it's like a 2, I think you were the 1.7 to 2.2 maybe.
1.7 to 2.2. How can that, were you shocked at what the alcohol could do to your body and your ability to drive a vehicle or function on a normal? I bet you it was probably tough to even walk or step off that bike if that's what they had to do.
Very difficult.
So good decisions in the future, right? We had that talk the other day too, is the importance now when you're in a wanting to go to this career field, especially as you get to middle school, beginning of high school, how decisions you make now can affect the careers you have down the road. And I kind of touched on that in my opening the other day. And we appreciate when we go to when we see 22 students in a class between the ages, I think, Brian, what is it, 14 to 18-ish, yep. 14 to 17, that we have that interest so that we can get in front of you and tell you what the expectations are, because we have to hire in this profession people with integrity. And for us to be able to share that with you now and your classmates now, and you happen to be here, so I say you, but even all your other classmates, so that we choose the right path down. You're in high school and you're impressionable, and so it's all about making good decisions now. Brian, how is this made possible?
So I'm glad you asked that, Chief. Years ago, I was training at a business called TI Fluid Systems, and which I'm wearing their shirt.
You happen to be wearing their shirt today.
What are the odds? And they actually approached me after the training was all done, and we do all our trainings for free. And they're like, we want to help out and we want to sponsor something. And we were just starting off our Citizens Academy, so they started with sponsoring that. Went great. And then when I told them that we were about to start a youth academy, they wanted to sponsor that as well. So the high majority of the funds that are paying for this whole academy, and there's a lot that goes into it. There's food, there's uniforms, as you see, we have shirts, and we have equipment needs. The high majority is funded by them. They just wanted to be part of the community, and then when I told them that we're now going regional with all these different agencies, they were super excited to do it. We definitely couldn't do it without them.
And some of our sponsors, I know yesterday with Mission Barbecue, yep, provided at no cost to yep. us. Mission Barbecue, how was that?
That was good.
Yeah. Mission Barbecue is always a supporter of law enforcement or military. Yeah. So first responders. I know Jersey Mike's, mm-hmm. Rio Wraps also helped us out greatly in some of those. Was there any other sponsors? I don't want to miss anyone that you can think of.
Nick was in charge of the food, so I wish I had the right answer.
Yeah,
I don't want to leave anyone out either.
Yeah, that's all right. But we appreciate them. If any of them see it, they know who they are, and that's exciting for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping, in the near future, by the time you finish high school and graduate college, I'll probably still be around. Officer Miller, on the other hand, is
I'll be retired.
He'll probably be retired, but we appreciate all their hard work, and I think we got to give a shout out to all of the officers who are planning this through there, with Officer Miller, Officer Soley from Bloomfield Township, Officer Gina Moody from Birmingham, and Lieutenant Harper, I think, was in charge of it from Rochester. And again, they had a evidence tech person out the other day. I forgot to touch on that. What'd you guys do for the evidence technician stuff?
We used kind of like powder to find the fingerprints.
Did you find any?
Yeah, I did.
Were you able to lift? Did you guys try to lift them too on the paper?
Yeah, but I didn't do as well at that. But it was very difficult for me to do.
Yeah, and I think today you guys are learning something about tasers and some of our other tactics. So really, you guys have been run through a really brief what we would experience over 16, 17 weeks in a police academy and annual training. And what you're doing now, the defensive tactics, the taser training, all of that requires us to do that, most of that annually, or if not, firearms is quarterly for most agencies. Some do it monthly, and we have to pass state tests or things each year. So
well, and also, Chief, as you know, so tomorrow this is about getting them prepared for the future, getting some life skills. Tomorrow we have Rochester Fire Department's going to be getting them CPR trained. I'm going to be getting them Stop the Bleed trained. We're going to get them some certificates to go along with it that might help them for future employment. Thanks to the sponsorship from TI Fluid Systems, we were able to purchase each of the students their own tourniquet kit, for lack of a better term. Nice. It comes with a pouch, some scissors, a CAT tourniquet, and I think it's something that just you really can't measure those skills that they're going to be getting, and I think it's super important that we're able to do that.
And you and I talk, I said it today, it's sad. In a way, it's sad, right, that this new generation or younger generation has to worry about that stuff. As you and I probably worried, the worst we worried about was a tornado drill in school, right? Yeah. But unfortunately, the reality is they have to be prepared now. Yeah. And that's awesome. I honestly didn't know that we were doing that, but that is some training that is second to none. And not only that, they'll be able to use it in the event they're anywhere, right? Yeah. So I know Officer Miller, you also do, and I know Officer Soley does some of it as well, but outside of in your role at Auburn Hills, you do a lot of security assessments for businesses, which is, again, when you talk stop the bleed, these aren't just things that,
it's not just active shooter. It's
right.
Any accident. You know, our department averages a couple saves with our tourniquets a year. Our police department, not just our fire department, our police department crashes. So now, you know, bleeding, loss of blood is the #1 cause of preventable death, and this is one quick, easy way to learn how to stop that. So we outfit we consult at least with all these businesses and schools to get them those stop the bleed kits.
Yeah, but again, so in Auburn Hills, if anybody there is watching it, Absolutely. Or even here in Bloomfield Township with the way you guys all partner, if they have questions or want that type of training, they can reach out to Nick, Officer Soley, or if they're in Auburn Hills, they can reach out to you or your department and offer those services because they are so important. You guys in Auburn Hills have a lot more factories, right. A lot more industrial than obviously here in Bloomfield Township. So you guys can run into a lot of different things. So, well, I appreciate you guys being here today. I know I pulled you out of class to do it, and I look forward to hopefully working with you in the future. You're making some good contacts, Skylar, here with the police departments, and don't be a stranger to us. We hopefully won't be a stranger to you. And Brian, I appreciate you coming on too and taking time away from the other 22 that you're responsible for.
Absolutely, not a problem.
All right. I want to thank you guys for being on the show this week. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
When I was about 5 years old, I went to a fair with my family and I saw an officer, it was actually a canine officer, and I was like, oh, I want to do that when I grow up.
I actually did an interview at the academy, and after that I set up a ride-along, and the ride-along was great.
After I completed my bachelor's degree, I thought to myself, there's something more I want to do. And with law enforcement, I've always had an interest in law enforcement. I just never acted on it until I got my bachelor's degree.
I had a personal experience when I was a nanny, and the kid I nannied for got killed by a drunk boater, and that's part of the reason I became a police officer.
I left the Marine Corps in 2017, and I used my degree working in marketing for 4 years. I had been unhappy in the job I was previously in, and I put myself through the police academy.
It's not an overly busy department. You know, we do have our handful of big crimes, but you're not going to be running from major crime to major crime to major crime.
Your workday is actually what you make it. So above the calls that you get dispatched, there's plenty of time to go out there and be a proactive police officer and kind of dabble a little bit in what is your specific interest in police work and seek out the crime.
Well, the community itself is very supportive of our police department, and we were very fortunate to have that here. It's a good sized department, but it's not so big where you get lost.
As far as the camaraderie goes within the department, it's great. Roll call is probably one of the funnest times on shift. Getting to go out to these different calls and hanging with these guys or girls is a bonus.
I think that's the biggest thing, is the respect and friendliness. We have a lot of amenities here. We can work out on duty during our breaks for lunch. There's so much more. I really like working here.
From the time of my ride-along at the start of the application process till the final interview to the job offering, it's been nothing but a great experience.
Wouldn't want to be anywhere else. It's the people here, the people I work with every night. It's a great place to be, and I couldn't have made a better choice.
I know for me, it's an honor to work here. This is a department that I knew as soon as I heard about them, this was where I wanted to work and where I wanted to continue and hopefully work my whole career here.
And for our weekly crime update, on my last podcast, I had mentioned that we had a little bit of a break in there in our larceny from autos and auto thefts. Unfortunately, in the last week and a half, those picked back up. And I sound like a broken record probably, but we on every podcast, but we're still seeing an increase in these auto thefts and the car break-ins or left unlocked, most of them. We cannot encourage our residents enough to remove your key fobs from the vehicles, lock your vehicles, even cars in the garage. What's happening is people are leaving their one car out in the driveway, and then the criminals are accessing the garage through the open car, and a lot of cars in the garage still have the key fobs in them. So we're asking our residents to help work with us on that and partner with us. If you do make contact or interrupt someone breaking into a car, please do not make contact with them and dial 911 immediately. As we saw last week in the city of Troy, a homeowner interrupted a auto theft or a catalytic converter theft in their driveway, and the subjects fired shots at the homeowner and struck him in the leg. So we do not want anyone to interfere. Just call 911 and we'll get cars to your area as soon as possible. I also want to touch on a little bit more serious of a topic, and I think we'll bring Hillary and Courtney, our new co-responders, back on in a near show. But we did have an uptick in suicides in the last week and a half. And I just want to remind our residents that we do have services available. We do have the ability to connect residents with services, and that includes family members who may know of somebody that's in some type of mental health crisis. Please reach out to our agency. We do have our co-responders who can connect anybody with the resources that they have. We are more than willing to come out on those calls and try to divert any type of negative activity or suicide prevention that we can. Even if it's a simple phone call or just need to talk to somebody, please reach out to our agency and we can help out. Again, our non-emergency phone number is 248-433-7755. And if it's an emergency, do not hesitate to call 911. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.